What's up and welcome to the No One Is Watching podcast, where we explore high-performing teams and individuals, dig deep to find out what makes them tick. Whether it's in sports, business, the military, or everyday life, this show highlights the DNA shared by elite performers, the process through which they leverage that talent, and ultimately, it helps you apply those lessons to your own life, business, or team.
So it's really good to see you, man. It's been too long, but I'm glad to reconnect with you.
Right. Sounds good. Yeah, it's good to see you too. We went through a lot together right out of the gate.
We did. We did. Yeah. We got the throes of the rebuild, and you were there to come out the other end of that pipe, and I'm so grateful that you were, because I know how hard you worked and got to hoist that trophy and get that hardware, man. So I was so happy for you when it happened, and a bunch of other people over there as well. But yeah, it was an interesting road to get there, huh?
Yes. Yeah, to say the least. It was real cool.
So I want to start with your playing career, actually, because you were a hell of a hitter, and I'm curious. I mean, I know I've watched you play. Back of the baseball card is what it is, right? You were a really good situational hitter, bat control, patience, discipline. Was that kind of always your game offensively? Did it evolve? Did you always have that gift, from a kid on up?
No. So grew up in a real small town, played baseball every day during the summer, usually up at the park with my buddies. 5 or 6 of us would meet up there. I mean, we're talking a town of 500 people. Nothing around. We had our little league games and pony league games, and then I got to high school and played Legion ball. But it was play up in the park and see how far you could hit it every time. And really, it all. I mean, I did really good through high school Legion ball. Didn't really know a whole lot. A lot of wiffle ball. Learned how to hit breaking stuff playing wiffle ball. Played some fast pitch tennis ball with a little pipe that we would swing, and I'd have people stand real close to me and just fire as hard as they could to see how many rows deep in the cornfield I could hit it. And honestly, I didn't really know anything about anything other than see it and hit it and see how far you could hit it. And I wasn't a power guy when I played, but I had pretty good juice when I was growing up. And really it all came together in college. And my college coach, I had no idea what the opposite field looked like. I mean, for me, when I grew up, you hit it oppo, you were out. And so that was something you didn't do. And in college, when I went there, my college coach said, unless you can hit the ball the other way, you're never going to play. And you come in as a freshman. I went to Eastern Illinois. It was Eastern Illinois had a good team, but we always got the best of the rest because all the big dogs went to all the bigger colleges around the area in the Midwest, and we only had 2.5 scholarships to work with. And so we were a bunch of grinders and get after it. And my college coach played some pro ball. He was very military style with his coaching, and you didn't mess with him. You just did what he said, and it was intense. And so everything started there, learning to hit the ball the other way. I got really good at it really fast. Couldn't believe how good I got at it. But the strike zone discipline began there, because if we swung at a pitch this far off the plate, high, low, in batting practice, we got wore out. He would walk around the L screen and undress us. And I mean, That was 3 years of you do not swing at a pitch this far out of the strike zone ever.
Did that really shape? So that really shaped your approach and philosophy to hitting, it sounds like.
No question. It was swing at strikes, never swing at balls, and hit the ball in the middle of the field the other way. And when you pull the ball, it's when you're just fooled and you're out front on off-speed stuff. So I hit over 400 3 years in college. I got drafted, got into pro ball. And I mean, it wasn't just the education I got in college was complete. It was base running. It was situational hitting. It was defense, first and third situations, bunt defenses, rundowns, pop up priorities, all the stuff that we would do in pro ball. I'd had it absolutely beat into me for 3 years daily. And so there was, I mean, it was just continue to do what you'd been doing. And what I realized, even though I had minimal talent compared to what was around me in the minor leagues, guys from Florida and Texas and California that just unbelievable talent. And I mean, off the charts talent, but they didn't know how to play the game. And I felt like they played so much baseball growing up that the fire and the drive wasn't there the same as it was in me, because baseball was something I just did in the summer. Basketball was my passion. And when I decided to go full tilt baseball in college, that's when it was on. And so anyway, that's the long and the short of kind of how my game evolved. And I just kept doing what I'd learned in college and polishing up. And, you know, you pick up little things here and there. You have conversations. My whole goal was to be the best I could be. And I was going to be mentally tougher smarter and tougher than anybody that I played against. That was my whole goal. I wanted to beat them between the ears and in the heart. And that was, you know, see how far you go, you know, see where your talent takes you. And I did good. And, you know, I was underdog all the way up. You know, nobody thought I was going to be worth the crap. And I kept going up. And when you get to the big leagues, they say, well, you got here, but you ain't good enough to stay here. All right, well, let's see what happens. And it all worked out pretty good.
I'd say so. Yeah. I want to touch on the mental stuff a little bit more. So you wanted to be mentally tougher than anybody. What kind of things did you do to prepare yourself? I mean, what was your approach to the off the field, the non-physical piece of the game?
Conversations, really. It was like anybody that, you know, I wish I would have read more, but it's like, I don't know. I never really trusted what I was reading all the time. And so I want to see people's face. I want to know their background and be able to ask questions. And we're talking really good, established baseball players that were, you know, walked in my shoes. And then it was like when I got into pro ball and all the way up, it was like anybody who would stand still. I wanted to pick their brain about the game, and that was it. And then you know, it was amazing how much was okay. Well, that confirms what I learned in college. Okay, that confirms. Yep, that's the same as what I learned in college. Got to stay in the middle of the field, hit the ball the other way. You know, don't get pull happy. That's going to get you in trouble. Don't worry about the pitch in. Let that take care of itself. You know, so stay in the middle of the field, stay the other way.
If that works at the next level, right? And even in the big leagues, right?
Right.
Like the rookie year, the first time through the league, a couple years in against the best of the best pitchers, you're constantly sort of testing yourself. And I know you're a student of the game, and it's funny to hear you say you didn't trust what you read. It was more conversational. You and I used to talk about how the culture of when you were playing in a clubhouse versus what it is maybe now. Guys don't hang out in the clubhouse quite as much as they used to. They're not sitting around in their sliding shorts and talking the game for 2 hours after the game. I can envision you being one of those guys in your playing days that were just trying to soak things up, and then also I'm sure share with the younger kids the younger players as you were more of an established player in your career.
Yep, 100%. And it has changed a lot. With the Braves, there was a lot of that still going on, though. Will Smith came in years ago and kind of brought that culture back. And, there'd be 5, 6, 8, 10 guys, 12 guys, sometimes 15 sitting in the corner. And, they had their coolers and fridge and the bar, and I won't tell you what the name of it was, but it was impressive. It was impressive. And they were there for a couple hours after the game.
That's
And
amazing.
it was daily. And so that was still going on. I mean, that's been probably, I don't know, Will's first year may have been 21, 20, yeah, 20 maybe. And then we won the World Series in 21. So anyway, it's been going on since. He kind of brought that back more than it was before, but that's not the norm. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Who were some of the best teammates you had throughout your career?
Mm. You know,
Guys that
I
helped
don't
shape.
know that I had bad teammates. It's a tough one, really, because I got stuff from everybody. And there was, I mean, when I went to Milwaukee, Molitor and Gantner, that was, and not taking anything away from George. I mean, he was, the best hitter I ever played with. But the time in Milwaukee, in the middle of my career, when I gone through getting released from the place I grew up in, and then going there and getting into that culture, a different culture for the first time, um, blew me away in a good way. It was like, holy cow, man, this is a different dynamic than I'm used to. And, Robin was stinking low key and had the eyes of a killer. Molitor, you know, he was same way, eyes of a killer, but would talk a little bit more. And then, Gantner was like the clubhouse clown that was making everybody laugh and keeping everybody loose. And, Robin and Paulie would put him in his place, and, he'd pop off back. It was just, but then you go between the lines and it was on. It was, good teammates, helping guys, the eyes that they had, things they'd see between the lines, talking the game and preparation and all of that. I mean, we didn't have analytics, we didn't have advanced scouting, we barely had video. I mean, we knew the reports was, okay, watch the pitcher warm up and see how hard he's throwing and what he's got. I mean, it's changed so much, and the game has changed so much. It's pretty cool, actually, the evolution that I've been able to be part of.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, right? Because you talked about a little bit, but your maturation, not so much evolution as a hitter, started in college. It sounds like. But did you know when you were a hitter how hard it was to be a hitting coach?
No, no, yeah, it was after, towards the end of my career, and then really after I got out, that um, I started being a hitting coach. Probably my last 2 or 3 years, maybe longer than that, maybe 4 or 5. It kind of started in Milwaukee, where I was able to have conversations with teammates, of just things I saw and adjustments I thought they needed to make. And it was all just conversation, same stuff that I learned, that I hadn't learned from veteran guys when I was coming up. I was that guy, and it was just trying to help your teammate get going who was really scuffling, and then all of a sudden it started working. And then the more it would work, the more guys would come, and the more conversations, and the more it would work. And my last couple of years, I'm like, holy cow, this is pretty cool. It's kind of like you're able to help guys who are a lot better than you, talent wise, really go off. And then after I retired, I got out of the game and I wanted to coach my kids. And we opened up an indoor baseball training facility in Kansas City, and it was called Seitzer Baseball. Mike McFarland played 14, 15 years in the big leagues, catcher. He and I opened up a training facility and wanted to do lessons, and we just wanted to help kids. We wanted to give back. And that turned into, okay, if I'm going to take my big league education and start pouring it into kids, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way up, I got to make it simple. And so I probably my last year of playing, when I knew I was going to retire afterwards, a lot of hotel time where it was writing notes down of basically the core of my belief in every phase of the game.
This is when you were still
when I was still playing my last year. Basically, it was going to be our foundation from a business standpoint of what we were going to pour back into kids and how we were going to simplify the game. Because, when you sit and you process, it's like I came to this conclusion, which was really cool. There's only one way to play the game. It's fundamentally sound. And so 8-year-olds can be taught good fundamentals, good mechanics. They're not going to be that good because they're not strong enough yet. They're not coordinated enough yet, but you can start giving them some of the right moves and fundamentals of the swing and fielding and throwing, and just make it simple. Balance, a load, try and hit the ball. I mean, I had so many people that would bring 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds and say, I want you to work with my kid. And it's like, no, here's what you need to do. This is what I did with my kids all the way up until they were probably 10 years old. I said, watch the ball, stay on balance, and hit it right back at me. And that's what I told them. We go to the backyard, and those were the 3 things that I said. Watch the ball, stay on balance, hit it right back at me. And all of a sudden they start picking up their foot because they want to swing harder, and the load starts coming, and they're watching baseball too, and you just kind of let them evolve. And
right.
And then I started coaching travel teams, and my kids played hockey and soccer and basketball, and I went to all these teams and said, hey, anybody wants to come try out for my baseball team? Let's go. Because I wanted to get good athletes that played some baseball and start shaping them. And it was really cool, very rewarding. But then when I got back into pro ball, what I found is how I had dumbed it down for little kids. Big leaguers loved that too. They wanted it simple. They didn't want it complicated. So it was just a mind-boggling.
Go ahead.
I was like, it was just mind-boggling how it all worked out.
Well, I was going to say, like, one of my favorite, I'll have to ask this when I'm interviewing people, right? If you want to hire somebody, but it's take something really complicated and explain it to me like I'm 5 years old, right? And that's, right. To me, that's kind of intelligence, when you can take this really complex concept and make it very relatable and simple. And hitting, by most accounts, is the hardest thing to do in sports, right? It's just so damn hard to do that well and do it consistently. And so I had a feeling that's where that story was going to end, because the hitters are incredibly talented, right? There's guys that are, hand-eye coordination, strength, bat-to-ball skills, whatever it may be. But it's just the mental game is so important, and being able to simplify that and have a couple things to lean on. It's like anything else, right? That if you have that foundation to build on, and whether you start it when you're 8 years old or you're 28, right? Like just a couple keys to fall back on, be like, okay, balanced and see the ball, rather than trying to lift and launch and hit it as far as I can into the cornfields.
Right. Yeah. And it's, between the ears is the whole key to being good, to unlocking your natural ability, to your athleticism, your hand-eye coordination, your timing, your rhythm. If you got to clear the mechanism, if this sucker gets too full of junk, you're going to get bogged down, man. It's like, everything getting calcified. It just starts locking up. It locks up the mechanics. It locks up your moves. It locks up what's natural. And when you can mentally get yourself into a good place. I mean, these guys battle their mechanics, just relentlessly battle their mechanics. It's oh my gosh, it's just so hard to keep them out of their swing and just get into the box and focus on your plan and your approach and trust all of the stuff that you've worked on is going to come out. But they want results so bad. They're chasing results so hard, and they want to win so bad, and they don't want to let their teammates down. It's just I'm just sitting here summarizing our year this year is what I'm doing. So, it was so hard just because the guys cared so much, and we had so many injuries, and and then you come back after missing 2 months, and your timing and trying to regain that, and we're in the thick of a pennant race and trying to fight, and basically it all comes back to what's going on between your ears, and it can make you or break you.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's like whether you're trying to hit in the World Series, or you're trying to make a sale, or you're trying to write a book or whatever, it's like people perform well when they're free, when they're in their comfort zone, when we're in that flow state, whatever you want to call it. And that's, I mean, better than anybody, like it just takes one little ripple in that pond in baseball, and you're in your head, and then you need somebody to help pull yourself out, because it's that place to be.
And the biggest thing for me, it comes down to confidence. I mean, it doesn't matter what job you're in, you need to be confident. You need to trust in what you know, and what you do and how you do it. And again, it comes back to the freedom that you just said. You have to go into your job or a task, whatever it is, with confidence. And if you worry and stress, I mean, things I'll talk to hitters about is worry, fear, doubt, stress, anxiety will paralyze you, just paralyze you. And it's the fear of failure. It's the fear of being rejected or let down or not coming through, or and you get anxious about it and stressed out, and all of a sudden you're just thinking locked up. And when you go about a task with tension because you're so stressed out, everything starts to lock up. Swing stinks whenever you're tense, whenever you're stressed, whenever you're anxious. You don't see the ball good. How can you swing at that pitch? Your timing stinks. How can you be so late on that pitch in a 2-0 count? Well, right here. That's how.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you deal with some of the best athletes on the planet, right? And you know, if hitting is, and I would make the argument that it is the hardest thing to do in sports, right? And then being the hitting coach, it's got to be one of the toughest gigs out there, right? I mean, where any of us who were involved in the game, on the operational or the team side of it, I suppose, and not in uniform or not playing every day, I should say, you get hired to get fired, right? It's the
Right.
way it, and really your fate is really in the hands of the performance of other human beings. So that can be an uncomfortable place to be, right? I mean, you had 10 years in Atlanta. Is that how long you were there?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
Amazing.
it's unheard of, right, in today's game, especially as a hitting coach. And you were the not just hitting coach, you were I think Baseball America named you the Major League Coach of the Year, last year, and then 12 months later you get let go, right? You didn't suddenly become a bad coach, right? Like you didn't,
Right.
you know, the balance, the truth usually lies somewhere in between. But so much of that, to your point of like the mental game, how much, these guys are so talented, and what percentage of your job as a hitting coach do you think is to play, therapist and counselor and mental skills coach as it is to work on the mechanics and fine tuning their actual swing? At that point, these guys are already there. They're at the pinnacle of their career, at least with respect to being in the big leagues. So how do you're kind of the auto mechanic, making sure that everything is staying calibrated over 162, over a 5-year career, over whatever these guys are staring.
Yeah, it's probably 85% mental for my job. And and then you have everybody's got their own hitting guy that they're talking to, and that they work with in the off season, and which is fine. I mean, it's just the way the game's evolved, and it's another part of, you know, my job is to be able to manage all the different um, techniques that are out there being taught that these guys buy into. And so I don't talk to hitting guys. I don't really care what they think or what they know. What I care about is what's important to the hitter. What is important to him, because whatever's important to him is going to be his main focus. And so you need to get on board with what his main focus is, and then start helping, tweaking, shaping whatever it is to bring this out to maximize his potential. And you got 13 guys like that. Over the course of the year, I think I ended up having 29 different hitters on our roster this year.
Yeah, I was gonna say
So
you've got four players, right, that and you've got history with maybe, and then you've got the guys that are up and down. You get the guys that come in as injury replacements. You've got trades midseason that you have to adjust to. So how do you speed up that process? How quick do you get there? Say sign somebody in the offseason that's a free agent right before spring training starts. That's obviously you're getting to know these guys that are new to you in spring training. How do you approach doing exactly what you just touched on, right? Getting to know what makes them tick, what's going to make them successful, because it is individualized.
a lot of questions. You ask a lot of questions. You watch video, you see tendencies. I see tendencies in game swings. I'll watch at bats. I'll watch extra base hits. I'll watch swings only and see what they're swinging at, what they're not swinging at, and you start to get a picture of kind of what's going on up here. I mean, you know, okay, the swing's important, mechanics are important, but those are those are little things that are pretty, I don't want to say easy to clean up, but until this gets right, they're not going to clean up. That's the bottom line. There won't be consistency from a mechanical standpoint if mentally they're not in a good place. And so when you're watching the extra base hit, you're watching the damage, you're watching them, the high exit velos, hard hits, and you go, okay, during this stretch, what were you thinking? What were you feeling? Well, you know, obviously when guys are locked in and they're crushing, they're not thinking about anything, and they're feeling perfect, and everything's in slow motion, and that's where everybody wants to be. The problem is that may be 10% of the season if you're really, really good. And so 90% of the time, you either feel so-so or you stink. And so trying to get between their ears as to, okay, what were you feeling when it was really good? Well, that's going to be a short answer. I felt great. And then it's okay, when you start to get in trouble, what's going on? What do you feel like gets you in trouble? Oh, I start to try and pull the ball too much. I start to get a little too conscious in. Then I start chasing, blah, blah, blah. So it's a lot of questions after you watch, and then you get to know who they are. And through the course of conversations, you got body language, you got tone, you got intensity, you got the personality starts to come out. Are they making excuses? Are they accountable? It's you just get a read on them, man. It's like establish trust in relationships, and by the end of it, they know you care about them, you want to help them, you love them. You're not going to come at them and say, okay, this is what you got to do. You come along with them, and you want to encourage them to take what they know and who they are and evolve in a positive direction, making them feel like it's their idea.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so you get 12 or 13 guys that are doing this, right? And you're doing this with a dozen different personalities in real time, right? It's dynamic in the middle of a game. And really, I imagine what you're trying to do is, like we touched on earlier, right? Free them up, get them, stop thinking, just let your athleticism, let your preparation take over. So touch on the preparation piece. There are guys that you've coached a couple of them, right? That can just roll out of bed and rake, right? They don't think. They're just God reached down and touched them, with just the right touch and just made them a natural born hitter, right? And then there were other guys, and it sounds like you were a little bit like this, right? Where maybe not off the charts gifts, but just turned into, through preparation, through hard work, through studying, you put yourself in a position to maximize your ability. So who are the guys that you feel, whether they're ungodly talented or not, but did a really impressive job or stood out to you from a preparation standpoint, whether it's pregame or off season or whatever it may be? Who are some of the most prepared guys you've been around?
Matt Olson, one of the most prepared I've ever been around, and Austin Riley, Nick Markakis, when he was here, incredibly prepared, did their homework on the pitchers and locked in and knew what to expect and what they were going to do. Pitchers' tendencies and game plan and how much vertical on the four seamer, and am I swinging just above the ball? Am I adjusting my approach, a little more off gap because of how much secondary stuff and strike the ball, this and that. But probably Matty was one of the most disciplined, prepared, locked in to the game and his swing and pitchers, and the preparation was off the charts.
Is he a thinker? I mean, is he sort of a deep thinker with his preparation? Because some guys want all the information, right? Every bit of information you have. Some guys are just like, hey, let me know what the velo is in the fastball and what's this breaking ball.
Yeah. Majority want minimal. He wanted everything.
Is that right?
He wanted everything. Matty wanted he was a very deep thinker and processed it all to really hone in what his game plan was, where he was going to hunt, and what his approach was, where he was trying to hit the ball. And it was pitch to pitch, count to count, pitcher to pitcher, situation, dictated, scoreboard dictated. He was as prepared as he could possibly be. And that being said, very in tune with his mechanics and his swing, analyzed deeply analyzed to maybe overanalyzed, and he got hot the second half. And guess why he got hot the second half? He finally said, "Screw it. I'm just going to go let it fly. I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm done trying to be perfect." He made every adjustment. He was on adjustment number 76 just after the All-Star break and was perfect in the cage when he was working on it, and then the game happened and revert, and
Mm-hmm.
frustrated to no end. But he just said, "You know what? I'm just gonna. I've been swinging a bat and hitting baseball since I was a little boy, and I'm just gonna go. I'm done analyzing this stuff and get." And all of a sudden, he stinking took off. I mean, I'm like, "Hello, can we not forget this, please? Can we not forget
Right.
this?"
Remember how we got here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you talk about Olsen. You've coached you coached a couple MVPs, some Hank Aaron Award winners, which Freddie Freeman, Ronald Acuna, Jose Bautista. I mean, you've coached some really accomplished and talented players. What did those and those three guys? Just use those three guys, right? Those are come from very different backgrounds, very different styles of hitters, um, very different sort of career trajectories. What do those guys have in common that makes them elite?
Uber talented, extremely simplified. Batista was more of an analyzer with his swing and moves, but I felt like his main focus was trying to find pitchers tipping. So he spent more time in video trying to figure out if it was going to be a heater or slider, so he could look for tips, and he called them tells. He goes, "I got to find this tell," and he would spend a
Poker.
lot of time in the video room, and it's like, I don't have time to look for needles in a haystack when I got 13 guys I got to get ready. So you go look for the needle in the haystack. Let me know if you find something so we can let everybody else know. But those other guys, I mean, simple. I mean, it was, they had their approach, stay in the middle of the field, not a lot of thought with their mechanics, and even though they would have to make tweaks from time to time. With Freddie, we had our go-to couple of drills that we would do, and Freddie was probably the most disciplined hitter that I've ever been around, where he would almost never deviate from his approach of trying to hit a ground ball to the shortstop. And that was his approach every pitch. And didn't matter what the pitch was. We just wanted a good pitch, always hit off the fastball, and tried to hit a ground ball to shortstop, because he knew his tendency was to lose the barrel and get underneath, top spin balls to the pull side. And when he thought ground ball to the shortstop, it kept him on plane better and kept him through the ball better. And Freddie's Freddie. He's pretty good, as we saw.
Yeah, we sure did. Yeah, Freddie's got one of the for the kids that go to batting practice, one of the most boringly consistent BP routines that you'll see. Right? It's just he's a machine.
Yep.
He doesn't deviate from that. It's just who he is. And I remember when I was in Arizona years ago, and he was in the big leagues, but he was a couple years in, maybe. It might have been his second year, somewhere in that neighborhood. They had some good hitters on that team. They had McCann was there, Chipper was still playing, and we were getting ready to play him, and we had a guy advancing him, and he's like, "Hey, I know this team's good, but like," and he was maybe hitting fifth or sixth in that lineup at the time. I can't remember exactly, but they're like, "This is the guy you can't let beat you." He's like, "I know they get the other guys, but like Freeman he's the best hitter in this team." So, he's
Wow.
yeah.
How about that? Spot
No.
on. That guy knows.
Yeah, good scouting, right? That's good scouting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then Acuna. I don't know if you remember. This is years ago, but we did some off-season like development camps. Sort of off the field, some more leadership development and skill development in Atlanta. And Ronald was still in the minor leagues, and we were trying to figure out which players to include and which we weren't. And we were talking to you guys about it, the coaching staff, and we came to the conclusion, let's just leave Ronald alone. let's let Acuna be Acuna, right? Because he was a little bit like Manny Ramirez. You're like, man, he's going to do it different. And just again, getting back to being free. Like let him play free because that's when he's at his best, and let's not muck up the gears with anything else. Some other guys might gravitate to it, but we felt at the time. Who knows how we would have responded to that or not? Obviously, his career's worked out pretty good for him, but we just felt like leave well enough alone with this kid.
Yeah, I tell this story often. It's pretty cool. My first year, okay, when you and I were together, that very first year, we get to the end of the season, we go down to Orlando for our end of the year meetings during instructional ball. And it was like 3 days. We'd have meetings in the morning, talk about the season, go over the players, and then we'd go out and we'd watch the instructional guys take infield and then play a game for those 3 days. And it's like I'm new to the organization. I don't know anything about anybody, and guys, you guys were telling me it's like, okay, there's this, Austin Riley, first rounder this year, and keep an eye on him, and Ozzy Albies, little switch hitting, middle infielder, and watch him, and Christian Pache, he's a baby, and this guy and this guy, and I'm sitting there, I'm like locked in because I'm like, I can't wait to see who the studs are that could be the future. And there you go, and then we got this Acuna kid that he's all right. We got a little bit of money in him, but not just kind of keep an eye on him too.
Well, I think he got hurt. I think that was the year we were obviously had a terrible year in the big leagues, and I think that was the year he got hurt. And so he didn't even play a full year in the minor leagues.
Well, he was there during instructs, and what I saw for those 3 days when I got home from those meetings, one of our boys they were getting ready to have their first baby, and I said to Tyler, I said, if you have a boy, I want you to name him Acuna. And he goes, why? I said, because I think I may have seen the next Roberto Clemente.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
And he was 16 at the time. And what I saw him do in that batter's box, I mean, he's 16, basically going up against 19, 20, sophomore, juniors in college, pitching wise, that he's facing. The at bats I saw him have, saw him run in the outfield, saw him throw. I was like, holy cow. But the at bats were mind-boggling impressive. And then, you're 100% right. Just let him play. Let him play. Let him develop. He is the most simple-minded person in that batter's box that you will ever be around. And the ability and his talent just takes him to where he's at.
Yeah, it's pretty special. He's pretty special. So him, it's easy, right? As your hitting coach, you're like, just, get him to settle down every now and then, let him go do his thing. Remind him of some cues and some keys. What were you like in the box? Like in game, in the moment, were you a thinker, or were you trying to free yourself up?
I was locked in on where I was hunting, where I needed this pitch to be, and then precisely where I was trying to hit it. And I was, I'd get before I get in the box, I'd look at the infield, see where the biggest stinking hole was, and go, here we go. That's where I'm going. There was a man on first, double play, situation. I'm driving that friggin' ball right through that porthole. And I practiced all the time, all off season, daily, taking the pitch in and hitting it the other way. And I'm like, that you can hit a 27 hopper through the right side if it's a double play situation, and you got a runner on first. It's a give me base hit. And that was the frustrating part when they had the shifts, that hitters wouldn't do that more often. I mean, I would have lasted. I wouldn't even have got to the big leagues if it wasn't for being able to situational hit. But I was completely locked in on what my approach was and had full confidence that I could do it. So, you know, I was hunting a pit, I was hunting a heater, and ready to make adjustments on off speed. I was very disciplined. You could count on one hand how many times in 15 years in professional baseball that I sat on an off speed pitch. I hit off the fastball all the time. You could also count on one hand how many times I would sit on or I would swing at a first pitch breaking ball my first at bat. I wouldn't do it. And rarely after my first at bat, I would rarely swing at a breaking ball before I had a strike on me. I was hunting a heater, and I wanted to hit a fastball. Hitting fastballs were way easier than hitting breaking balls. Breaking balls were nasty, and so I get myself in a fastball count. I would not swing it off speed. If I chase, that's different. I'm talking see it, recognize, and decision is go when you're in a fastball hit 2-0, 3-1, 1-0. If I saw a breaking ball, shut down. Because a lot of times it's amazing how many times you'll see something pop and you'll go, that's a hanger. But because of my game plan, how disciplined I was at executing that game plan, I'd see it pop and I'm like, gosh, that's a hanger. But I'm in my fastball count, so I'm bullheaded with my game plan, and it would be a ball. It'd break more than I thought. I'm like, oh my gosh, now I'm 2-0, and I'm so glad I didn't swing at that. Well, you get enough of those, and you're like, you don't worry about taking a 2-0 breaking ball or a 1-0 breaking ball. It's like, okay, so what? I wasn't afraid to hit with 2 strikes. I was a table setter the majority of my career, and I hit 2-hole most of my career. And when I hit 2-hole, I had base stealer on first. Willie Wilson to Kenny Lofton, guys that could flat go. And I'd say, okay, we got signs. Me and you got signs. If you can't get this guy, you bump your helmet. That tells me I can go. But if you're going to get him, you're going to pick your spot to get him, I'm going to give you a strike. I'll just take a strike. If I get a strike on me and then you go, I'll take another strike to give you a chance to get there, and then I'm going to grind to try and move you over for the guy behind me. And
so those guys love
you. They love me. And then we'd have, if they couldn't get the guy, we'd pick our spot where I'd hit my helmet because we were watching each other, and we put hit and run on. So I'd pick my spot to where I'd call a hit and run. So he'd take off, I'd swing and, let it fly. But I said, I only got one rule. I go, don't ever bluff. Don't ever bluff. I go, because if I got a strike and you bluff and I take a fastball right down the middle, I'm going to be freaking hot. Yeah. That's bottom line. So don't ever bluff. And it was great. It was great. We scored more runs. I made more outs and I was so happy about it just because we were scoring runs and I was a part of it, being able to help set the table. So we get a cheap ground out and we're up 1-0.
What's amazing for people that don't, that maybe don't follow baseball or don't understand how difficult it is to hit, right? Going back to the whole inner monologue about, I'm not going to chase a breaking ball. I'm going to recognize there's a hump in it, but I'm still not going to swing. From that moment to the time the umpire makes the call or the ball, that whole thing's happening in 1/10 or 2/10 of a second, right? It's just that getting back to the preparation and playing free and how much detail there is that goes into performance, right? And all that thinking, it's a combination probably of muscle memory and repetitive training and thinking. But to be able to do that in the moment, I mean, it's incredibly hard, right? I mean, nobody knows that better than you.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, I mean, when you think about it, in hitting, if you succeed 30% of the time, you got a chance to be in the Hall of Fame, which means you're stinking 70% of the time. And 30% success is considered phenomenal, and stinking 70% is considered phenomenal. That doesn't make sense to people.
Yeah.
So it's like the pressure, the frustration, all the emotions that come into the hitters' minds, and it's just, that's what makes it so hard. That's bottom line. That is why hitting's so hard. And we always say that hitting a baseball is the second hardest thing to do in the whole world.
What's the
The
first?
first hardest is teaching it.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, man. I mean, look, you've been a part of some really good teams, right? As a player and as a coach, some really talented teams, some that have been talented and won, some that have been talented and not won, right? You've been part of a rebuild, you've been part of a World Series championship. What's the difference? Let's assume, relatively equal talent levels, which I'm sure you can, off the top of your mind, think of probably 2 different seasons where the talent level was comparable, or maybe the team that didn't win quite as much was more talented, right? What's the difference for you in those years between those teams?
The difference for me, and I can't say that one of these teams, I mean, we just got to the playoffs 7 years in a row, and I can't say that one team was the world championship team was way better than any other year. I mean, okay, 18 and 19, that's when we were starting to overachieve a little bit, and all of a sudden we were getting better. But you got, Max Frieds and Austin Riley and Albies, and then Acuna comes, and it's like you got these kids that are cutting their teeth in the big leagues, and trying to get more experience, more reps, and settle into themselves, that they're proving to themselves that, hey, I'm a good player at this level. I'm not just a good player, I'm a good player at this level. I want to be a great player at this level. And so once that talent, they start to figure it out, that's when, okay, now we surround them with the right people, the right pieces. And bottom line, number one most important thing is the talent level. And we've always said this: great players make great coaches, bad players make bad coaches. So the number one piece is the talent. But to your point, there is no guarantee that you will win with great talent. No guarantee. The big X factor for me was the character and the makeup of all of that talent. Who are they? Who are they as ball players? Do they care about themselves, or do they care about winning? Now, they all care about themselves. They all want to do good. But what is most important? Is winning more important than me doing really good tonight? And to a man, they would all say yes. Now, that doesn't mean they were happy that they didn't do good. They go come figure it out. But I never saw in the last 6-7 years a guy come off the field after a win without a stinking huge smile on his face. And they cared about winning. They cared about their teammates. They cared about helping. They brought energy and got after it for 27 outs every stinking night. And there was never a time where they go, up, we're out of it. Let's just go ahead and finish this game off and get it over with. No, they would bring it for 27 outs. Ninth inning, down by 3 or 4, they didn't care.
How much of that you think, you talked about a lot of those kids coming up through the minor leagues together. They got to the big leagues, within, 1 to 2 years of each other, almost to a whole, like the core of that team that won the World Series. How much of that you think contributed to that environment, right? That them coming up through the minor leagues together, competing together, being on teams for 2 or 3 or 4 years in a row, and knowing who their teammates were and strengths, weaknesses, character, all of it.
Big time. It was huge. You could tell they had an edge to them that was special. And it goes back. I'm not even going to say it was the minor leagues of playing together. It was who their parents and coaches of them growing up helped shape and evolve these mindsets and mentalities about how you go about playing the game. And I'm telling you, there are people that are unselfish and care about winning and bring energy and get after it. You never have a bad day being around them. You look forward to being around them because you know what you're going to get.
Yep. Yeah. You can't teach that stuff, right? And go back to, he was Jose Bautista, right? He had a checkered sort of career early, and then all of a sudden it clicked for him, right? So there's an example, and had a couple monster years. So there's a guy that obviously there was always talent there, but he just hadn't put it all together. So you see guys that suddenly the switch goes on physically or even mentally, and everything starts pumping on all cylinders. But how many guys in your career does they're just a bad dude, they're a bad teammate, for their first part of the career, and then suddenly they turn into just an upstanding individual and a guy that you really want to, you want your daughter to marry one day kind of thing. I mean, that to your point, that's your when we were sitting in draft rooms, right? You look at, okay, the talent is what the talent is, but like, what's this kid going to do when his back's up against the wall? What kind of teammate's he going to be? Does he really love the game? Does he want to compete? How is he raised? You can't, because by the time you get, the kids get to you at that point, they're not fully formed, but they're mostly formed from a character perspective, certainly.
Right. And if I was scouting, the first sign of pouting and moping that I would see, he would be gone. I'm sorry. That would be, I'm big on body language and attitude, because you're going to have a truckload of adversity in this game, and it's not how much you go through, it's your attitude as you go through, and that usually dictates how long you go through it. And
love that.
Those are the mentally tough son of a bucks that you want to go into a foxhole with, and that's the bottom line.
Yep. So I think you just answered my last question. I was going to ask you what makes a good team. You talked about, being a two-hole hitter. You got guys, you got that synchronicity between the base stealer and you, and you're willing to sacrifice, potentially sacrifice a pitch or an at bat to help your team or to help this guy steal a base, which may help your team, right? So, like, what does it mean to you being a good teammate?
I will. I've been around a lot of guys that I would say, man, they're just great teammates. Probably Charlie Culberson was one of the best teammates I've ever been around. And Charlie didn't play very much, but every day you felt like his his mission was to make somebody feel better. about themselves, just to lift them up, to encourage them in whether it be a comment or a pat on the back or whatever. And for me, it's being a good teammate is that trying to make people around you better. You know, you may lead by your work ethic, you may lead by words, but most of the time people, there's an unselfishness that's oozing out of them that they care more about other people than they do themselves. And for me, when you have that mindset, and then whatever it takes to win mindset, you got a good teammate.
Well, you are definitely one of those, my friend. So, Seitzer, I appreciate you taking the time, man. You're a good one. Miss you. Look forward to doing it again sometime soon.
All right. Sounds good. Good to see you, Billy.
You too, man.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the No One Is Watching podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to hit subscribe to be notified of future episodes. If you'd like to support the show, please take a second, leave a rating and review, or share it with your friends. If you're interested in similar content, you can check out my website at nooneiswatching.com, where you can subscribe to the newsletter, read my blog, or follow me on your social media platform of choice. Look, your time is valuable, so thank you for lending me some.